Oh man, look at this hail. It has just completely hailed on our garden.
Hey everyone, it's Paul here, and welcome back to week number 4 of the Great Garden Challenge, where we are seeing how much produce can we grow in this 15 by 20 foot garden space right here behind me over the course of an entire season, and where you get to put in your guess and see how much do you think that we can grow over this season, and whoever gets the closest wins the ultimate Great Garden giveaway, where you can win $500 worth of free seeds, a Birdies Raised Garden Bed of your choice, and lifetime access to the Seedtime garden planning software. Pretty fun stuff. And you can all do that at the link down below in the description. In fact, do you want to know what some of the guesses were? It's been kind of interesting and kind of fun to see. We've had guesses literally ranging from around, like, I think the smallest was like 21 bucks, all the way up to, get this, $80,000 worth of food that somebody thinks that we can grow out of this garden. And I'll just give you a little hint. If I grow $80,000 worth of food out of this garden, I think I might just quit my job and go full-time into farming. So like I said, this is week number 4, and last week you all got to see us actually break ground and start preparing our garden beds. And this week is kind of an extension of that, because we started out with continuing to prepare our garden beds and get our first transplants in the ground. And it wasn't just minutes after that that we were struck by a storm. But just before we get there, a quick little reminder that during this series, we are also hosting a fundraiser to help lift 100 families out of poverty and into an abundant life. We're working with an organization called Farm Stew. They do this all the time through training and equipping and teaching people how to grow their own food and sell it to the community and really equip their lives to rise out of poverty. And so there is a link down below in the description here where we are hosting this fundraiser. In fact, anyone who gives $1,000 or more is going to trigger a Bonanza giveaway. A Bonanza giveaway is where I pull out the Seedtime hat and we have a bunch of garden goodies inside here, and I'll pick a random draw that we will give to a random person who has guessed how much that we're gonna be able to grow in our garden. So you're gonna wanna enter the main giveaway, and then anyone who triggers the Bonanza giveaway, woo! It's gonna be a lot of fun. So go down, give towards the fundraiser. And one way that you can give right now is actually by subscribing to this channel, because for every 100 people who subscribe during this series, we'll be giving $1 towards the fundraiser ourselves. So go check out those links in the description below. And now let's talk about what has been happening in the garden this week. So as I mentioned earlier, this week started with a continuation of last week, which was preparing our garden beds. So we came back out here and we ended up deciding to do a little bit more loosening of the soil. Our soil here is kind of a clay loam, and it can be a bit hard and clumpy. And so we tried to get a little bit more of those clumps out, and then we came in and we added some amendments onto this soil. So we have some compost here that we purchased a while back for our crops in the greenhouse and stuff like that. And so we brought over wheelbarrow loads of our compost. We put some compost on these beds. We also got some peat moss to help add some bulk, some organic matter to our soil, help with our soil structure a little bit as well. So we're putting on the peat moss, the compost, and then we added a couple amendments. We added an amendment called azomite. It's a great micronutrient source, and so we sprinkled that on our garden beds, and we also added some kelp meal, because we know that just generally from other soil tests and stuff that we've done in our area, our soils tend to be a little bit low in potassium. But it'll be interesting to see what comes back with our soil test. So we sprinkled some of that on, and then we scratched that into the top of our garden beds, all in preparation of transplant. Okay, so we got some bales of peat moss here, and our idea is to take this peat moss, and this is going to add a good amount of organic matter. We have a clay loam soil here, and so this organic matter is going to help with helping the soil structure, loosening it up. So we're going to take this peat moss. Our idea is to maybe put about half a bale on the bed first and mix it into the soil with some compost, and then I'd like to see if we can get a little bit of a peat moss compost mulch on top of the bed as well. We're gonna The main issue with that is that it dries out very quickly. So we're gonna need a good watering system to make sure it stays moist, especially when we're direct seeding and just getting new little starts started. We're gonna put some compost on here. This is some local compost that we got from a place that composts yard clippings and all of those types of things. And so it may not be as nutrient dense as some composts, but it's gonna be good. Okay, so we've been putting compost and peat moss on the beds behind me here, and now we are gonna put on some azomite, which is a nice rock powder that has a lot of micronutrients in it. So we're gonna be sprinkling that on. And we also have some kelp meal. Now, typically we would not suggest just putting amendments on your ground until you get the soil test results back. However, we do kind of know a little bit about the soil around this area from other soil tests that we have done. So we are going to be putting some of these on, and we will be checking the soil test results when they come back as well. So the other thing is that we have rain coming in this afternoon. So I want to get these beds done. I want to get some transplants planted in here so they can get some nice rain on them, and even get some stale seed beds going where we can get some weeds to try and germinate and knock them off before we direct seed some of our crops in here. So we're on a time clock. Let's see how much and how fast we can get this done. I'm off to get another wheelbarrow load of compost here, and the weather is not looking in my favor. Got about half of a peat moss bale and compost on each of these beds. Starting to rake them out. We've mixed the peat moss and the compost into the top couple inches of the beds here. Now we are raking them out smooth. We then raked the beds out and brought our transplants over, which these first ones are ones that I did purchase. So we're gonna add those in first, and then later on, obviously, pretty much everything else we're gonna be starting ourselves, except for maybe the tomatoes and peppers. I may purchase some transplants from my cousin who has been grafting some tomatoes, and we're gonna try grafting some tomatoes too, but now I'm getting down a tangent. So we transplanted our little transplants into the garden, and at the same time, while this all was happening, a storm was coming in, and we could see the clouds, and so we knew that we were on a race against time to make sure that everything got in here. All right, so we have some of our transplants here that is gonna go in, and we did purchase some of these, our cabbage, we have some broccoli, some kale here, and Ethan is bringing over some lettuce, right?
Daddy, are you sure that's broccoli, Daddy?
This one over here is broccoli. Okay, normally we would use a bed rake to do this, but I'm just gonna do it the quick way here now. Okay, and then the plants are gonna be 18 inches apart. So here we go. Let's get our first plant here, little miss.
See holes, Daddy?
Not yet.
18 inches, what's double of 18? Daddy?
There we go, 36.
36 is double of 18.
Okay, the rain is coming. Quick, get them in.
Yeah, to get them in now.
This is looking great. All right, then we got kale here, cabbage down here. After working up the soil, it's actually quite nice to plant into. Let's see if we can get it down just a little bit deeper there, buddy. Very good.
A little bit more kale. Okay, Daddy.
Here we go. The garden beds are prepped, and we got our first transplants in: cabbage, broccoli, kale, some lettuce down at the end there. Got a little parsley down here. I say they're prepped in the sense that we got some compost and peat moss and some amendments on them, and we've smoothed them out. But at the end of the day, we still want to figure out a way. We still want to figure out how we're going to mulch these beds, and we're definitely wanting to put down wood chip mulches in the aisles. And so there's still more work to do to really get this prepped up the way that we want it. The rain is coming in, and hopefully it's not too big of a storm and it doesn't wash this away. So we'll pray that everything goes smoothly here and that they just get a nice gentle watering in. That would be perfect. Aha, here's my dad with a load of wood chips. We had these dropped several years ago, and these are the ones on the top, so underneath it's more decomposed. But in the aisleway, we want these not decomposed ones. We started bringing over wheelbarrow loads of wood chips that my dad connected with a tree company back in the day, and they came and dumped just loads and loads of wood chips. So we just have this huge pile of wood chips that has been decomposing, and so we started bringing those over to mulch our aisleways and pathways around the garden. Just minutes after we had transplanted our little baby crops when could hear the storm coming. And it's like that time when you hear the rain coming, except this time it was loud. And at first we were like, what is this? And we looked up, and all of a sudden, ping, 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 and the heavens let loose, and it was hail. And I just booked it back toward my dad's house. And amazingly, the hail started to let up, and our kids came out and, were trying to eat the hail. And I went over and looked at our little plants, and I thought, you know what? I think that they may be okay.
Oh man, look at this hail. It has just completely hailed on our garden. Taking a little beating. I think they're gonna be okay. It's the next day over here, and are you ready for this? They survived. They're doing well. Actually, they are doing fantastic.
We are so incredibly blessed to not have had any significant damage from the hail that came this week. If that hail had lasted longer, or if those hailstones had gotten bigger, we could have had some serious damage to these sprouts that had just gone in the ground. And there's a verse that says, in all of your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the blessing of God in protecting our crops this week. If you think about it, in life, there are things that we can control, and there's things that we can't control. The weather is one of those things that we can't control, right? But in the garden, we face it all the time, because every time you plant one of those seeds, there's nothing you can do to make that seed sprout. You can't just like flex and get it to sprout. We're actually kind of helpless. But we can provide the best environment. We can try and do everything that we can to provide an environment for it to sprout and to grow. And that's what we're gonna be doing in this garden. We're gonna be trying to provide the absolutely best environment that we can for our plants to grow. But at the end of the day, we have to acknowledge that there's a power outside of ourselves that actually grows these plants. So we like to pray over our garden. We like to give it back into the hands of the source of all life itself. It kind of takes a weight off of our shoulders, because we're gonna do everything we can, like we said, to provide an environment for it to grow, and then we leave the rest in God's hands. And it's gonna be really fun to see this garden grow. During that same storm, actually right before all of the hail arrived in the afternoon, the winds were really strong, and they completely ripped off the plastic from our hoop house. And my mom was inside the hoop house, and she just heard it ripping completely off of the hoop house. Look, this plastic is literally torn like a knife sheared it along the side straight. It is so weird. So we've been having some crazy weather over here, but like I said, thankfully things are okay. Our plants are doing well. We got our first ones transplanted in. And now we're gonna take a quick moment to congratulate Diadem 28 for winning our Redmond Soil Test Kit. So I'm gonna drop a comment down below your comment in the video last week with instructions on how you can claim your test kit. And if any one of you would like to win something really cool this next week, here's what's coming up. We are going to be giving away one of these heat mats. So these are the Seedling heat mats that I have used under our tomatoes and peppers here. And you can see we've had some awesome germination. Looks like just about all of our tomatoes have come up, and most of our peppers have come up as well. So if you would like one of these seed heat mats, leave a comment down below. Let us know your favorite thing to grow And I can't wait to give one of you these heat mats to use in your garden this year. So I just pulled up my Seedtime account on my phone here in the Seedtime mobile app, and you can see the little spots where I transplanted and marked as complete and seeded my other little crops directly in the calendar here. And it just makes it super easy to be able to scroll through my season and see when these things are gonna be growing, when they need to be transplanted, etc. But check this out. Here at the task list, this is what is gonna keep me on track throughout the season. For example, like I just finished transplanting the Swiss chard here, and so I can go mark that as complete. When I come back over to the calendar, it's gonna show completed on the day that I just did it here. And earlier on in the week, I went through and marked those other transplanting tasks complete in here as well. And as you can see, we're already scheduled to be direct seeding some of these crops. And coming up, I need to actually seed some basil here. So these are some things coming up, and this is the task list that's gonna help keep me on track. Oh, and by the way, there's also a journal in here, which I've started logging some journal entries as well, where you can put in journal entries, you can add pictures, you can see pictures of some of our tomatoes just coming up here. And I'll be able to keep a journal log through this entire garden plan and through this season. I can actually link these journal entries back to the specific plantings in the calendar. It's got the bed locations. So it's a really great place to keep my notes and observations through the whole season here as well. So after getting our transplants in, we continued with the mulching. We mulched all the way around the garden and mulched all of the aisles of the garden. And later on, my son Ethan and I went out to the wood chip pile and we scraped back the top of the wood chips and really got down to the bottom where it's been decomposing the most.
Beautiful.
2, 1, go.
Look at this. This is really nice.
Yeah.
We could use this just as a
Perfect mulch, yeah.
Okay, you can see right here, we have scraped down to the bare ground down here. So that's the bare ground. We don't want that. But you can see the layers. This here is all pretty much decomposed all up to here. And then up here you can start seeing more of the bark chips coming up to the top. So we got a good 5 or 6 inches of really nice decomposed organic matter down here.
You know, this is really good organic matter.
There's some really beautiful decomposed wood chips out there that I think we may be able to use as a really nice mulch on the beds themselves. We've not done that yet. In fact, what we're doing right now is what we call a stale seed bed method. So according to my seed time plan, I really should be starting to direct seed some crops into here, but we're kind of pushing them off just a little bit because we want to grow a crop of weeds here first. So my dad has set up a sprinkler. We're sprinkling this area. Of course, that keeps our transplants nice and watered in, but it's also going to encourage the first crop of weeds to start sprouting. Then we'll come in and cultivate. That's called a stale seed bed. We'll cultivate them off. Those little guys will die, and then we'll be able to come in and direct seed and get a head start on the weeds. That being said, with this really nice mulch, I think we may be able to just mulch it and direct seed directly into the mulch, which would be a double benefit with the weeds, with the stale seed bed method and the mulch. Meanwhile, back at our seed starting station, our tomatoes are coming up, our green onions are sprouting and coming up as well. Haven't seen any of the peppers quite yet, but excited about our little starts that are coming on. And with these tomatoes, we are going to be trying to do some grafting ourselves, which can really help with your tomatoes just to really make them extra robust. If you have a really good rootstock that you're grafting onto, it can even help with disease resistance and all of that. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. Just swung on over here to Bountiful Blessings Farm, which is right across the road from us, where my uncle and my cousin are farming and where my dad and I used to farm as well. And they have some extra starts here. And Joshua said that they have some extra Swiss chard. So I'm coming over to check it out because we need some extra Swiss chard here. And then after getting most of our transplants in that we were needing to transplant, a little bit later on, we ended up going over and getting some Swiss chard, which was not among our original transplants, which we came over and just today transplanted the Swiss chard in. So now we are caught up with the things that needed to be transplanted into our garden right now. coming up soon. We're gonna be transplanting some more things in here, of course, and direct seeding. And I have had this crazy idea. We have people guessing that we're gonna grow $30,000, $40,000, $80,000 worth of food off of this space, which I think is maybe a little bit on the high end, but have this crazy idea that has come out of that, which is what if we actually included growing some mushrooms in this garden as well? So I've been looking at different types of mushrooms, and I'm thinking about possibly trying some wine cap mushrooms and growing them in the aisleway because they like to grow in wood chips and straw. And I don't have any straw here, but we could layer the spores in with the wood chips. My only concern is if they start coming up, and then if they come up too thickly, like, am I gonna have to step on them to harvest my other crops? That's my only concern right now, but I think it would be really fun to see if we can harvest and get a harvest of mushrooms out of here. So leave a comment in the comments below. Do you think that we should grow mushrooms in here with all of the other crops? It adds another bit of value in here, right? So hey, I think that wraps it up for this week. Thanks so much for watching. And once again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon so you get notified of future updates. And coming up this next week, we're gonna be working on wrapping up this stale seed bed method out here, hopefully getting some things direct seeded into this garden. And another thing that I need to be looking at is how are we gonna set up irrigation for the garden. We've got this little, it's kind of like a rainbird sprinkler that we're using right now, but I'd like to set up an automated irrigation system out here that just really keeps things going really well throughout the entire season. So that's something I'm gonna be looking into as well. So stay tuned for that. Once again, don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to put in your guess for the garden challenge. Like, how much do you think that we're gonna grow out of here? Seriously, if you get the closest, you win a huge prize and it's free to enter. So go down into the links below. Make sure to join the challenge giveaway and can't wait to see you next week.